This is the Please Understand podcast that you are listening to. How about that? Hopefully, you clicked on the right thing. If not, give it 5 minutes. Maybe we'll win you over. A lot of stuff to get to on this power packed pod. A lot of news coming in. We try to turn these around as quick as we can in football season, but guess what? We got lives to live. We've got schedules. So here we are on a Wednesday. We were going to try to do it Tuesday. And a couple weeks in a row, we've benefited from some rather significant news coming across the wire. Of course, talking about the Vikings bringing back Myles Gaskin again. And by the time you hear this pod, I'm sure he will have been cut for the seventh time since camp.
God.
I'm losing count,
And
but
then re-signed once again.
we got to keep the glue guy on the practice squad. So that's the big news of the day, obviously. We will get to the Vikes. Could get a little spicy talking about those boys and their 0-3 record. Maybe the best 0-3 team of all time. Stay tuned. We had Damian Lillard get dealt today, and we've got those Minnesota Millers clinching the AL Central. What a monumental achievement for them. So a lot to get into. Subscribe, download. If you happen to be finding yourself visiting your grandparents this weekend and your grandma inevitably needs you to help her with her cell phone, while you're in there, download the Apple iTunes app or Spotify, subscribe to the pod. She'll never know. I mean, she'll be none the wiser, and we'll get a few clicks and get our numbers running up a little more for the inevitable takeover of the Please Understand pod. Gentlemen, how do we even begin? Is it your least favorite moment or your most hated moment from that game?
Hmm.
I think we can all agree it lived up to the hype of being probably the dumbest game that you could expect,
Oh,
and
did it ever?
it
Certainly was.
was. It sure was.
Wow.
I don't even know where to begin. Do we start from the end and work our way back? Do we start from the
I say just
beginning?
fire off a moment because you know what? I got you.
If you got a moment in the holster,
My
let her rip.
my the expectations for this team were already pretty low. We had expectations to make the playoffs and whatever. But when it got to the certain point in the game, I wanted to win for only one reason, and that was so Brandon Staley would be fired because he is an awful coach. The fourth and make us go 85 yards. The fourth and one, and then they hand it to, of all people, Josh Kelly. That's what you decided to do? He had like 12 yards on the day.
His 9 for 13 wasn't.
Yeah,
You didn't think that was a
bonehead
great idea?
play. And then of course he hands us the game, and what do we do with it? But just the coaching around the NFL this week, I'm sure we'll get to some other stuff, was we complain about our coaches and they deserve it. But man, there's some morons running some teams right now.
Yeah, dude, it was like hot potato of stupidity. Like, no, you guys win. No, we'll fuck it up and give you a chance. Like, nah, we'll ricochet an interception in the end zone and put an end to this. And even then, you're like, are they gonna fuck up the kneel? And are we gonna get the ball? Like, but yeah, I mean that fourth and one, you're kind of thinking like, what does the other team like not want you to do? You know what I mean? Like, in just because it's the Chargers, you're like, of course they're gonna fuck this up and give us a chance.
Absolutely.
And because it's the Vikes, of course we're gonna fuck this up and blow the game. Because that's certainly what has been the theme of the season. Is just like, there's the phrase that you hear in any sport, right? And I think football certainly in particular, where it's like, you want the ball, get the bounces your way or whatever, right? And it's like some of the most unbelievable shit that we've seen happening through 3 games where like Caleb Evans, is that a pick? No. Are you going to volleyball set it to Josh Palmer for a touchdown? Okay, that's not too big of a
Hmm.
swing. That's tight. All these ricochets. Hawkinson has some blood on his hands. He certainly doesn't have the ball in his hands after he gets stripped and has a little volleyball set to, I think it was Kenneth. Was it Kenneth Murray who picked it? Who gives a shit either way? Um,
Doesn't matter.
but like just stuff like that. And, even we even benefited from a couple breaks because Madison was doing everything he could to fumble the ball, and the Sirs were just like, "Hang on, bud, We're gonna whistle you dead.
Yeah,
We're gonna give you
that
another
first
try.
one, that
gonna
first
give you
one
a
they
gift.
showed like a
Yeah.
live replay of that first one that he fumbled, and there was no whistle. I
And
could not
I know.
believe that they did not call that a fumble.
And they looked at it, and they're like, "Nah, our
And I
call
don't
is
even know.
great."
I don't even know if we ended up scoring
Yeah,
after
we
that.
nailed that.
I can't remember, but I did see something that said that we had a 1st and 3, first and goal from the 3, another first and goal from the 3, and a first and goal from the 6, and we ended up with 3 points total off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sick.
that in and of itself is just like, what are you doing
Impressive.
around the goal line? Yeah, that is impressive. That's hard to do.
It's not easy. Yeah, we're finding ourselves in some rare territory, and not always good, right? Of course, we got to do everything on the extremes. So just some more nonsense, and it's like you can say all you want about like, oh, we got the passing leader, the receiving leader, all this shit. It's like, yeah, you're giving the fucking ball away. I expect a fumble on almost every play. I'm just watching these games
Yeah.
like, all right, is it out? Is the ball out in that crowd of dudes? Like that somebody comes up pointing the other way? Oh, of course. Why wouldn't that happen? Especially when we're in the fucking red zone. I'm like, how's this gonna go wrong? Because it will.
Mhm.
Ball just gets slippier there.
Yeah, they grease them up. The Sirs got a little wax they put on the ball when the Vikes get in the red zone. But yeah, I mean, it was just I don't even know if you can call it a game of checkers. It was so stupid. And Brandon Staley he'll get fired eventually, but not spiking the ball at the end is just all time fucking stupid. And Kirk can
That was my
say,
number one moment.
yeah, it has to
Yeah,
be because it's like,
it
dude,
is.
any 9-year-old playing Madden knows to get up there and clock the fucking ball. I mean, Jesus
Yes.
Christ, like, what are we doing here? And
2-minute drive 101.
literally, yeah, I mean, this is like just day one shit.
And then they blamed the fans for being too loud or something.
Being
It's
too
like,
loud.
what? Why?
Jesus
Because they were all
Christ.
yelling, "Spike the ball!" Like, what?
Yeah, they're like, you dumbass, spike the ball.
just some like weird damage control to say the noise, like, and maybe that did impact you, but it's like, you know what helps doing that? Getting in the fucking huddle with the clock being stopped, man. Like, you still would have had 3 plays, and I don't want to hear any shit about like, well, if that Hawkinson play, like, if that just goes incomplete, like, you're still like, well, what did we have, like 10 or less seconds at that point? So it's like now you're hustling the next 3 plays off, and you probably don't have the full playbook at your disposal. So it was just absolutely like ridiculous how that
Yeah, because
unfolded.
at that point you have to, if that does go incomplete, now you have to throw the ball in the end zone. Where
Yeah.
with 32 seconds or whatever, even if you don't come up short, you try a screen pass or whatever, and you end up like a yard or two short, you can regroup from that, and then that's when
Right.
you should be hustling up. But you absolutely spike the ball there. There's no other play.
And knowing us, right? Either even if that ball doesn't get intercepted, it's like this is ending in a sack, or we're gonna like take too much time, or what we did on the previous drive where we had 4 cracks at the end zone on 4th down, we fucking throw it short of the end zone, a vintage Kirk move, and it was incomplete either way. But you're like, oh, sick, we got a 4th and goal, and let's just short of the line to gain again. Like that's one of Kirk's signatures there. But I'm not trying to hear any of that shit of like Kirk's like, hey, I'm just, I don't want to go rogue, and if my coach doesn't tell me to spike it, I'm not going to do it. Like you're just this empty vessel, that you're just a puppet for whoever's your coach, that has to move you, like every little fucking thing you do has to be controlled and commanded. Like that is a fucking terrible look for him,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean,
Another thing on the list of why he's not it or him.
right.
Wait,
that-
he don't got the dog in him. You need your coach to tell you to spike the fucking ball? Get the fuck out of here, dude.
it's a disgrace, man. And to
Hey, you're
even
no Austin
hey,
Reeves.
to admit that,
You ain't
yeah,
him.
to admit that is just some subby behavior, I gotta say. Like,
It is.
and that's why you're just locked into the 9th best quarterback, and you just cannot be trusted. Like, it's just some wires are just always crossed, and he's gonna fucking like freak out. And like, you're trying to tell me like you think Brady or Rodgers or anybody is you got to be like, hey, we're in the hurry up. What should we do, coach? Hang on.
Coach,
Like,
can you
run-
hold my hand through this real quick, please?
Run
Can
up
you
there and
walk me
spike
up
the
to the
ball.
line of scrimmage?
Yeah, what do you guys remember in quarterback when he tried the quarterback sneak, and then they had the the argument or whatever about it before before Josh Allen fumbled, that whole thing.
Hmm.
Like it leads me back to that, to just be like, oh, that wasn't my call. That wasn't like now. So now you just cannot make a call on your own at all
Right.
because of
I was just
something like,
scared.
yeah, because I mean, we saw it. I don't know if that's necessarily the reason, but we saw something like that happen, and now he's just, like you said, an empty
Gun shy.
vessel. I thought that was a great
Well,
that was
I
a great
think
one there.
we're reading into these quotes obviously because it's such an egregious mistake that it has to be answered for, and I think they all know like, yeah, we totally fucked that up. So what do we say? Like, I'll just say it wasn't, I wasn't commanded to do it, and Kevin O'Connell was like, "Well, it was loud, and we were trying to hurry up," and you're like, "Were you hurrying?" Because I don't
That's
know
another
that.
thing. Our hurry up offense this year is like a brisk pace can walk. That's all it is. It's not a hurry. Nobody's running. It's like just a speed walk up there for 30 yards, and then maybe we'll hike the play in like 15, 20 seconds. Like there's no hurry at all. To this offense.
Arguably
No.
slightly slower than our normal offense.
Yeah,
So that's great.
No, and you're right, because after Hawkinson caught the pass to give them the first down, they were just kind of showing him an alignment, and they were just kind of walking back, and I was like, where's the fucking sense of urgency here?
And he didn't catch a
none.
49-yard gain. Like
No, it was like 8 yards maybe or something like that.
you can get your asses up there and spike it, or like that's the thing where like you couldn't get a play in. Like I'm just not hearing that. That was a complete just gaff on our part. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? Like and other people can say stuff too. Where like, well, it doesn't come down to one play or blah blah blah. It's like,
That
hey
did.
man, yeah, kind of did. But you can also say like, well, you were pretty consistently fucking things up from the beginning of that game till the end, right? And you're lucky that the Chargers, wanted you. They do what they do best, right? Keep you in the game, and they lose Mike Williams. They did not have Eckler, so it's not like this was up against like their best punch that they could throw. Although they did, I wouldn't say kitchen sink, but they hit us with the Keenan Allen to Mike Williams combo, and Jesus Christ, was there anyone even in the picture in the secondary? Like they just took the bait hard on that. And you know what? He delivered a good ball. Good credit to him.
Which isn't that funny too? Because the one time they actually go after Keenan Allen, that's the play they drop. That was a great play call. I'm assuming that
Yeah.
Brandon Staley didn't dial that one up.
No, he's a defensive guy. That's Kellen Moore, greatest coordinator ever. Of course he dialed that up. But if you're looking at it from their perspective, you're like, hey, I guess they're going to blitz literally every play. You wonder if they're going to bite on this. And then just a quick one to Keenan, quick one to Mike, and it's just a walk-in touchdown.
Mhm.
Like
Sure shit.
it was not good. And, we've got talent on the offense for sure. I think there's a few guys on defense, like you look at Ivan Pace, right? That's a nice find as an undrafted guy. But we were thinking like, okay, Flores is going to come in here and at least he's going to blitz. He's going to like make adjustments. It's like, man, that sure looked a lot like a Donatel Sunday to me.
Yeah.
And they blitzed on I can't remember the exact stats, but it was like damn near 90% of the plays, right? It was like somewhere in the mid 80s, I think. And Herbert just carved us up. Like I'll see if I can pull up these stats. There's a lot of tweets of like, so and so, since we've been tracking shit, this is like for that many attempts, like the greatest anyone's ever done against the blitz. And we weren't even getting home either. Like we were
Not at all.
getting pressure like 1 out of 5 of these maybe. So but
Which
we
was
just
funny too,
kept doing it.
because like the week before, the run was just killing us, right? They were just
Right.
killing us with the run, and so we obviously expected, okay, Josh Kelly, he'll come in here and like they'll be able to run the ball. They didn't run the ball at all, and when they did, they didn't run the ball well. And then the other thing that kind of bothered me was on the other side of the ball, we're sitting here, and that we had a little bit of success, but we're sitting here with a fumble-prone running back, and we're like, hey guys, they have the worst pass defense through 2 weeks. Let's establish the run.
Let's pound it.
And that's what it was. It was pounding it. It was like, are we going to throw at all? I think you had texted me at one point and said, is Justin Jefferson on the field? Because they had not looked his way through like the first 2 offensive possessions.
Yeah, like I don't even think he got a target. You're like, oh, cool, good
Yeah,
game
what
plan.
let's just keep running. And I understand that you have to run. I get everything to establish play action, all that, and you're having some success with it. But we're like running the ball like we have like two bell cows back there, and it was
Yeah.
just. And then the second half, you start
Guess what?
passing,
We
and
have
look
none.
what happens. Yeah, we have nothing.
Well, you have
We
to
have Gaskins.
you know what?
True.
Feed him. I bet you he'll hold on to the ball.
Hey,
Boy's
Cam
hungry.
Akers, from what I've seen from Madison not being able to hold on to the ball, I say at 0-3, give Cam Akers the keys and just see if he has anything.
I would expect like
100%.
50-50 like split this
At
Sunday.
least for this game.
Yeah,
And then
I
when
think
Cam
so.
looks 1,000 times better and doesn't fumble,
Yep,
then it'll be his
I
show.
know.
he'll
And then,
fumble.
of course, Gaskin will get his.
Guess what Cam Akers is about
Obviously.
to do. I wonder if you can bet on that. Real quick, the Vikings blitzed on 81% of dropbacks yesterday. Herbert was 32 for 38. That sounds pretty good. I'm not too good with math, but and 3 TDs. Most completion attempts and pass yards any QB has had against the blitz in a game since ESPN began tracking in 2006. How do you love that?
Beautiful.
Brian Flores,
Wasn't there
everybody.
wasn't there a stat last week that somebody rambled off about I think you did about like the rushing.
Yeah, it was like
was like
yards
per
before
play or something.
contact was like the highest in like ever.
Yeah, we're just setting
Highest
records on a
ever.
weekly basis.
But the funny thing, you're right though. If you go back to that Philly game, which seems like it was a year and a half ago, like initially we did seem to take the pass away to the point where, and they simultaneously were like, hey, are we getting 8 yards a carry? Let's do that. And they kind of
Let's
like
just keep doing that.
figured that out, and we're like, well, let's just we're just gonna do that, right? If it's this easy,
We're still going to stop the pass. You can run all over us.
Yeah. So then it was interesting to see, of course, I'm thinking, Josh Kelly might have a nice little Sunday in the fantasy realm at his price point. guess how that
Good
worked
joke.
out. But they're like, it seems like teams are just like, what, we're just going to take whatever we fucking want. And there ain't much we can really even do about it. And we're not really causing any turnovers either. But that's the other part where it's like, if I feel like even last year or even like, we've had a bad defense now for a few years, which, if you go back through like our history of being fans for the last, like 25 years or whatever, like, yeah, we've always kind of had a way to have like good receivers and shit, but like, it's been a while where we've had a good defense, and now these last few years it's like we're getting carved up like pretty bad. But even in those years, I felt like we were creating turnovers at least. But so far this year, it's like, dude, they're just marching downfield, or Evans will just let a dude just straight run by him like once a game, and you just hope it's a bad throw as your only saving grace. But
What are you guys' thoughts on Hawkinson? Because I know like the pass into the game, he is just Vikings Twitter.
yeah, death
He
threats
was just
probably coming your
catching-
way.
Yeah, he was just catching so much heat and like, oh, we can't trade this guy. Can we trade this guy? Blah blah. I'm like, did the Lions know something we didn't? And I'm like,
That's just Twitter. Excuse
Dude.
me, X.
man,
The experts.
I don't know. What do you guys think on him? Because I think he's been pretty damn good up
Did we
until.
forget that he just converted the 4th down right before that? Like, I'm not freaking out. He had a bad game, a couple of weird plays, and like we've had a few turnovers this season where like Kirk has been just
plays.
jamming that ball in there, and like this is now twice in 3 games where like the other team has had a steal as a pick, or I don't know
Yeah.
what they call it, fumbles. I don't know what they credited Hawkinson for on that
I think
first
that
one.
I think it was a fumble, if I'm not mistaken.
So Kirk
Yeah, first one was.
Yeah,
they called that a fumble?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, typical. Just to rack up our historic pace, hopefully. At least that counts for something good. Speaking of, breaking history all the time, we're doing it in all the ways. But to your point about like, I don't really give a shit what these people say on X about anything. But I'm not freaking out. Like he's been good. It was just a bad game, and like you'd still probably put him as I don't know, top 3. Obviously, Kelsey's 1, but then it's like I'll have a conversation on who's 2. Probably tie goes to Mark Andrews, but like Hawkinson's been producing, man. It's like
Yeah.
look who Kirk
Yeah.
went to on those last 2 throws. which there's another conversation. It's like you want to maybe glance up to the outside. If you're going to throw it into these crowds all the time, throw it to 18. How about that?
Or
Think on that.
why does it take so long to get Hawkinson involved? I guess I could go back through the game logs, but I feel like the second half of all these games, he's just been getting peppered with targets and catches. It's like
Yeah.
where is he in the first half?
Well,
Why aren't you looking
you
his
know,
way more in the first half?
what you mentioned earlier, right? We're like, why are we coming out running the ball? And part of that was like we could not pass block to save our life. So, but they all had really good run blocking grades. So they're like, well, if we can get the run going, that maybe will help our line in terms of pass protection or whatever. But like, I don't know, man. Like it was okay. Like it wasn't anything like too crazy. What did Madison have, like 90 yards? It wasn't some historic day.
Hmm.
But yeah,
20 carries, 93 yards.
how many carries?
20.
20?
20 for 93.
Yeah, no, you over
That's
15. I know you guys. That's a little too much for your backs, but I think it was a good game out of him. And I've been hating on him all season too.
It's just
It
the
was.
fumble
It's the
stuff.
fumbles is the
And
big
you know
thing.
what else?
Yeah.
He also had a couple
Yeah.
like real bad drops too, where you're like, dude, what are we doing here? Look at the ball.
Oh, that one. Yeah, he started
Yeah,
punching the ground. Yeah.
Those were not good either. But yeah, it's like, dude, I thought we were going to come out attacking one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and instead we don't even
Shows how
see.
little you know.
Yeah, fuck me, right?
Kirk had 50 passes on Sunday. That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just
I
kind
wonder
of
how many were in the second half. That would be
game
interesting to
script
know.
kind of dictates that when you get behind. But like, I'd like to see Jordan Addison on the field before the second quarter, but they're just like, we got to get Josh Allen. We got to get these two tight end sets out here, and that's the type of off. Like, why is KJ the two in those situations? My assumption would just be like, I guess he must be that much better of a run blocker on the outside. It's like, whatever. If we're running in between the tackles, I don't really care about that. So game plan issues, I feel like adjustments weren't really made, certainly on defense. And you saw that, like that very last drive. So after we got stopped we had 4 chances, goal to go, right? We go for it, needing a touchdown to take the lead. We don't get it. They're backed up, right? And the first play is like just the easiest pitch and catch to Keenan Allen for like 13 yards. And you saw Byron Murphy like, look around like, where's the fucking help out here? Can we get a couple of dudes over here to maybe help me out, especially now that Mike Williams has been injured? And like it looked like he was looking at Harrison Smith like, where the fuck are you at? Like shade this dude on this side, right? And you just could see it the whole game, right? We're just gonna blitz and play. Like I guess they were sitting back in a zone. I don't really know what the fuck you would call it, because they were just. What was the other play? There was like a third. Was it a third and like 19? I think this is when they eventually took the lead, right? Or maybe went up by an extra touchdown. But like Keenan Allen got like a third and like 19 or something like that. That led to
I
probably a
remember.
Donald Parham TD, which was another play. Like you mentioned, Staley going for it. Like he went for that 4th and 1 the goal line basically, and I don't know what quarter that was in exactly, but like
I think it was like a second quarter.
that was pretty.
Is that the one where he just threw a dart to him?
Yeah, it was
It was
well
like, how the
defended, and
fuck
it
did he
was.
catch that?
Those are the ones where you're like, the quarterback. You look at him, you're like, why are you throwing the 100-mile-an-hour fastball to the dude who's 5 feet away from you? And Parham just fucking snags it in, and you're like,
He just
oh,
must
man.
have some oven mitts for hands, man.
Yeah, maybe we got to put him in the discussion for that 2 spot at the tight end position after the grabs he was making against us. So Staley, he had 1 4th down go his way, and then one that didn't. And I know the nerds probably were like, he had a 5% better chance of winning the game picking up that yard, but it's like, okay, what do the numbers say if you're going to tell me it's the Josh Kelly fullback dive? What does that drop to?
Not
0?
the Jalen Hurts QB sneak.
Right. It's not exactly Jalen pushing his way up for a
Yeah,
yard. So
you fed the guy who had not accomplished a single thing the whole day.
you're probably worst graded player of the game.
Yeah,
Let's get the ball in his hands. So that was just, it was one of those games, right? Of course, shit went down the way it did. And initially, this was going to be the game, the fantasy game that everybody had their plays. We thought this was going to be a shootout. And for a while, you're like, oh my God, this thing is a dud. Everybody's trying to run the ball. Like, what the fuck is going on here? And they did finally turn it into a track meet eventually, which just goes to show you, like, what were we doing all week? What was the fucking mindset here to get Madison, like, as priority number one? And then Jefferson.
You said 20 carries, Jake? Is that what you
Yes.
said? And I wonder, do you have that in front of you? How many receptions he had too? Or like
5 receptions.
so 25 touches. That's bell cow territory.
Yeah. And Chandler, I think, had 1 or 2 running plays, didn't he?
Damn.
3.
Yeah.
So we ran it 28 times.
Well, 5 of
24.
those were receptions. Yeah, 5 of those were receptions
23,
by Madison.
yeah. So,
Took over the CJ Ham role.
CJ's
Got
like,
those
what
dump
up,
downs.
man? What do I got to do to
CJ only
start
with
getting
1.
peppered? It's not a winning recipe. You got to get CJ involved, or you're going to start taking L's. And
Does that also have the targets as well?
Yeah.
Or just receptions? How many targets did Madison have?
7.
Jesus.
7 targets. Holy shit.
Check.
Yeah,
it
that
out.
is
Well,
man.
when you got 5 seconds to throw the ball, you got to wherever he's out there sitting out there for the screen.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy.
We also
So-
got to think too. There's 50 attempts, so they're spread out.
For sure.
Yeah. So 0-3, just as we all thought.
0-3 in 1-score games.
Yeah, right.
Hey.
Right back to regressing right on schedule.
What up, Bryce
Um,
Young?
Yeah, right. Over KOC. I guess looking at the prognosis going forward, I mean, we were mentioning last week, like 0-2, it's a new era with an extra game and all this and that, an extra wild card. It's like, yeah, what about 0-3? Does anyone have the data on that? I don't know if I even need it. I'm guessing it's fucking pretty shitty.
Not very good.
Yeah, so making the playoffs, but then it's also like, well, what is this team doing anyway, right? Now, do we have the Kirk Cousins conversation, which I don't know that that's even worth going over in terms of like trading him. He has a no trade clause. I don't know like why he would want to leave. He's putting up crazy numbers. Whether we bring him back or not, like someone's probably going to pay him a nice chunk of change. Whether it's a 3-year, he could get like 3 years at $40 million. Like, what did we just see Daniel
Danny
Jones
Dimes
just
money.
get? Yeah, he'll get at least that. Like despite the brain farts, which once you kind of don't really notice all that from a distance, right? Like, but once he's your quarterback, you get up close and see like, okay, yeah, this guy could never win anything significant the way he fucking operates in the crunch time. And I know he has all the
crunch time.
comebacks.
Unless it's just a cakewalk. Yeah.
He'll have the comebacks and stuff, but like that's always there under the surface is him just like not able to do something that every other quarterback should fucking do in their sleep. Spike the ball or don't fumble at the most critical time, or on a 4th and 10, throw it past the fucking chains. You know what I mean? Like that,
Yeah.
those things just always pop up. But maybe to an outside team, right? You can talk yourself into bringing him in because it's better than your current situation. And that's exactly what we did. But now here we are, and I don't even know is this his 6th year here or something like that? It's I don't know if I'd say it's flying by, but it's like
He could have a defense. I bet he'd be a decent quarterback. Put anybody. Because I think he has not even had a top 20 defense since he's been with the Vikings.
yeah,
I think
I
the
can
best
see
year was
that.
like 23rd, I think.
Which makes like
That was
for
the
the
year
whole
we played the Saints, I think, in the playoffs and beat them.
when he got that win, yeah, and then they
29.
Yeah, I think
19.
that was the best defense he had in his career in Minnesota. So I'm not defending him, but at the same time, that's what it is, man.
Yeah,
he
and I'm not-
ain't got it.
I'm not blaming him like for the loss either. Like that, I'm just saying that non-spike is like just you can never forget that. And same for KOC. That is on your resume. And
His time management resume that is
which we
super
mentioned-
long in
we
the bad
mentioned-
category.
you could have tuned in last week, and we were already warning you about it. Podcast universe. And I was noticing shit last year where I was like, this ain't my guy. I know you can't fire him, And it wouldn't make sense to fire a guy that early, but it's like you're also, in my opinion, like you're just delaying the inevitable because eventually he will be replaced. Because I'm just seeing
Vegas,
shit that it's unforgivable shit. And like, yeah,
Vegas has him as the 4th highest odds to be fired right now out of all NFL
well,
coaches.
there's a couple heavyweights ahead of him.
Is the Chargers guy ahead of him?
No,
Do you know
Who's
it
ahead
is?
of him?
It's got to be the
Josh
Bears.
McDaniels? It has to be Josh McDaniels.
Bears,
dude.
McDaniels, and
Peyton.
I can't remember the last one.
Sean
It might
and
be.
them.
Sean Payton. Might
When you let 70 get hung on you.
he might just walk off the job and go back.
Might just quit at halftime.
He'll be back in the Fox studio by the start of the third quarter. Next time they play
Nobody will
in
miss you.
LA. Yeah, don't let the door hit you in the fucking. Never mind. But yeah, I mean, Cousins. Like, where is this heading anyway? Right? Like, we're kind of stuck in the middle, and that's the place you don't want to be. And we're also probably we're too good. We're not going to be picking third, right? We'll probably, if shit continues to go bad, we'll probably be like, I would think the worst we could do is maybe picking like 8th or 9th or something like in that zone. We'll find a way to win like 6 games,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
in our division. Although talk to me next week after Adam Thielen revenges us into a walk off, like reminds me of like when we lost to Arizona on that like last second, like he'll have a toe tapper on the sideline to have a walk off against us this Sunday, and then you'll be like, hey, let's all put our cards on the table here. We fucking suck. Like if you lose that game, like, you know,
Yeah.
that's like just pack it in, and then you have the situation with Jefferson, who has not been paid, which, you know, we're not in those meetings, right? We know those conference rooms over at TCO Field are top notch when we love to get
Beautiful.
involved. But like, how do you not come to agreement with that dude in the off season? Like, that's just not good business. That's not good, like, dealing with players. And I know we got, like, there was some survey or some shit that came out where, like, in terms of like the Vikings as an organization, and this had a lot to do with like just every little thing, like the facilities and how is my family treated, all that kind of shit. We ranked like very high, maybe even one.
I think it was one.
We were number one.
But for shit that actually matters, like treating your, you know, franchise players, like that's just not a good look, I don't think. And I don't know what he put on his IG today. There was some shit on X about maybe he, you know, one of those things that these, you know, LeBron is made this like
Everybody
popular.
Yeah, everybody reads too much into
Where it was
probably.
like, oh, he unfollowed someone. Oh,
He already came out and said it was something about his personal life or something like that, like a girlfriend or something. Nothing
Okay.
Vikings related. He's
Yeah.
football minded and he's ready to go Sunday. So chill the fuck out. Get your drama out of here.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
It's despicable. You guys are all, you should be ashamed of yourselves.
People just leech to it and suck
Oh,
everything
they're
they
the
can out of it.
worst.
They just
The
got to be
worst.
scrolling
And how-
all day.
And
their
how they were
phones.
treating Madison last week too. Like
I know.
we will go on and on about the player, but like don't be coming at these guys and like, you know, shouting racial shit at them and like just get a fucking life.
Death
Seriously.
threats,
If
dude.
you're starting
Death threats.
Madison in fantasy and you hate him for it, you're the dumbest that started him. Like,
you're the one.
That's
yeah.
right.
let's be honest. Take a look in the mirror, bud. If you're starting him, let's be mad at yourself here
Right.
first for being the dumbass for putting the lineup together.
Yeah, dude. 100%. So we got to figure out the long-term plan then at quarterback, because you're I would assume regardless, like you're going to give Jefferson that bag. And at what point is he like, well, I don't know who's throwing me the ball. Do we draft somebody again? And like Quezzy's got this great rate on hitting on players. Like, I don't know if I want him making that decision for, you know, our future at that position. He's another guy who is drawing a lot of heat. And I know a lot of the chatter is actually like he would go before KOC even, if you're trying to get rid of somebody like first. And I know the whole thing, right? Be patient. These guys need time, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I do understand that, but it's like, you got to show me something here, guys. Because we haven't, our last 2 drafts, like, what do we have to show for that? Ivan Pace, who was undrafted, he almost just
I mean,
showed
Addison looks good.
Yeah, that's true. He looks decent for now. I mean, in the opportunities that he's had, yeah, he looks like he's pretty legit. And then Ivan Pace, you're like, well, do we even how much credit do we give him for that? Did he just want to be here? Because he could kind of the ball was more in his court than it was like Quezzy. At least they were, identified him as a guy that we should go after right away. Because I think they signed him like immediately after the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like that Lewis Scene pick, man, like that. I know the guy got
He hasn't
injured,
even played a
but
snap yet.
Yeah, and you
it
could have
looks
had
bad,
Kyle
dude.
Hamilton.
Right, who had what 3 sacks I think in the first half on Sunday, who was
NFL
a
record.
sure thing.
Yeah,
Maybe that's a little strong, but like everybody was like, this dude's best safety in the class, should be a
they had
top.
him going as high as like 2 on some mocks. I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't think he would be there for us, and then of course we trade down and like just sniff, 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 and here we go. um,
The sniffs run right down the chain.
Sniff. He hasn't even been sniffing this year. I feel like. Wait till that kicks in. Wait till these field goals start getting missed by us. We haven't even missed any kicks that have fucked us
Greg's
over.
so perfect.
Like there's plenty that could still go wrong here as we sit 0-3. So, it's not good. I guess there's a stretch coming up here, week 8. By that point, I'm assuming we're probably 0-7. But from week 8 to 14, you got at Swine, at Falcons, Saints, at Broncos, hosting the Bears, whoever's coaching and playing for that team, bye week at Raiders. So like there's a stretch where you can try to make up some of this ground potentially, but you got to start or you got to stop this bleeding here because you got the Chiefs and the Niners coming up soon, and it
Ugh.
might be too big to crawl out of at this point. Pop her out.
We started.
Let's